On this episode of Industry Relations, Rob and I talk about Homes.com, HomeSnap, and alternative histories. Let's go. This is Industry Relations, a podcast that's at the intersection of real estate and technology from an insider's perspective, with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Industry Relations with Rob and Greg. This is your co-host, Notorious Rob Hahn, and always with me, the fabulous Greg Robertson. Woo!
Hola, Rob.
Jazz
how are you?
hands returning. I'm good, man. How you doing?
Oh, just busy, man. Good.
Yeah.
Lots going on. So just really busy.
Of course, it's better than the alternative. That's how I look at it.
That's true.
Cool hat. I know where you got it from. I think you were mentioning this
Right.
last time I talked to you. So that's from the event, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't get it at that one, but at one of the shows for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. For those listening just on audio, Greg is a huge fan of the old 70s, like Volkswagen Bus.
60s, 67 and below. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And he's got this cool hat with that thing on it. And, so, yeah, you should ask him to show it to you next time you see him in person. But
Absolutely.
Yeah. But, hey, man, you actually have like a topic you really want to get into. So I'm like, sweet, let's do this. So what's happening?
Yeah.
What's on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, there's and we'll reference this hopefully in the show notes, but there's an article about in Inman that talks about how CoStar is going to sunset the HomeSnap brand, right?
Right.
I think we've talked about this on the other podcast or another podcast where the homesnap.com website is going away and they're redirecting that to homes.com, right?
Yeah.
So and this got me thinking, and the thought process was, and I might write a post about this, but what if CoStar bought homes.com first? Right? And I'm thinking like, so there's a number of reasons, like I think we could look back at this, and again, hindsight's 2020, right? But what were the reasons they bought HomeSnap? It was like because they had all these MLSs, they had access to the data, there was the BPP and all that kind of stuff. Okay, Let's fast forward to today. BPP deal blew up.
Yep.
They're shutting down the homesnap.com website.
Yep.
And they're also renaming the HomeSnap app. And then another crucial thing in the same article is that they're renaming it homes.com, which means in the App Store, all the realtors have to re-download another app, and all the consumers that had HomeSnap have to re-download, right? So what did, and if I go down the thing is like, if I look at homes.com, I think just because I'm familiar with the guys there, like, Andy Woolley's solid. I mean, we had him on a podcast before. Michael Hayes, they have Katie, they have David Millet over there, who's been running homes.com back when he was at Dominion, and he's now running Loop Network for CoStar 2 as well.
Yep.
I mean, the team over there is just a fantastic team that has a lot of real estate experience in the organized real estate space. So to me, I think they had a better and more seasoned team than HomeSnap had, right? And so you have that. The data, since homes.com had already a lot of agreements out there, but they didn't really, since they switched to become a broker, they didn't really need the contracts and everything that came with HomeSnap, and the BPP thing threw up. So they wouldn't really need that. And just the fact now that the app has to be completely, they have to switch apps, and when you re-download that just, I think, is a big risk, right? So they've always touted that, we have 1 million users on HomeSnap. Well, if you have to re-download it, can you really say that anymore? So what's missing? To me, the only thing is missing is to have a native app associated with the homes.com thing. Well, that's not the hardest thing to do in the world. I'm positing that I believe that if they bought homes.com first, they may not have needed to buy HomeSnap. And then really another thing that I would say is that because of what this BPP thing throwing up, there's been a lot of, like, I don't know if the word is animosity, but there's been friction between the homes.com team and the CoStar because of that thing blowing up. And if that wasn't a factor.
There's animosity between CoStar and Homes.com?
No, between the MLSs and CoStar,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
of all that. So
yeah.
that thing blowing up really, and again, hindsight's 2020 for sure.
Sure.
But I'm just saying, like, I think they bought HomeSnap for more money than Homes.com, right? So,
I think so. I mean, they paid 156 million for Homes, and they paid 250 for HomeSnap.
So that 250, and then, to me, Homes.com is such a better URL than HomeSnap. I mean, it goes perfectly with Apartments.com.
Sure.
So, so between the team, the data, the kind of friction, the URL, all that, I think, there's a good a good argument to be made that if they bought Homes.com to begin with, that they would have to need to spend that $250 million.
True. So, okay. So your thesis, your hypothesis is, knowing what we know now, hindsight 2020, hindsight 2020.
Well,
Your point is that
but I mean,
CoStar burned $250 million buying HomeSnap.
So this is why I love you so much. So this is good. This is good. I love having this, and I'm liking this because I haven't written this yet. So this will be a good thought process. Again, even if we didn't know, just let's just say they just bought Homes.com first. As a thought exercise, forget all the other things we do.
Sure.
Could they be pulling off what they're pulling off, what they're trying to do with their strategy now?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is yes. Right? So, yeah, short. Alternate history. Okay.
Right.
They don't buy HomeSnap.
What if? Right.
Right. Alternate history. Right.
Right.
They don't buy HomeSnap. They buy Homes.com instead. Right.
Right.
Homes.com has a whole bunch of. I guess so. Question one is this: prior to being bought by CoStar, how did Homes.com get its data?
I mean, they were not a broker. They syndication feeds, and then they blended data from, I think probably List Hub, like a lot of people do. Those kind of agreements.
So they had these syndication agreements.
Right.
Or maybe List Hub or one of these, right? They had these syndication agreements.
Probably a combination of that stuff, right?
Okay.
Sorry.
So the reason why I mentioned that is right now, as far as we know, CoStar is getting its data, whether it's HomeSnap or Homes.com, I believe, through the 10X brokerage subsidiary. Right. So they're getting the IDX feed, right? I believe.
Yes.
So where does Homes.com get its data from today? Is it via IDX or is it through syndication? Do you know?
It's IDX, right? Because they're a 10X they're a brokerage, right?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they could still be using the syndication agreements that they have.
They're all switched to IDX feeds.
They're all switched to IDX. Okay.
Yep.
So what that says to me is whatever syndication agreements that Homes.com had prior to being acquired by CoStar, right? Whatever those agreements were, sucked ass. Right? Because if they're superior, they would not have switched to IDX.
No, and we talked about that on that podcast with Greg and Andy and Michael, right? I mean,
unfortunately, you did. I wasn't on that podcast.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I did. So basically what the premise was is that there's no other way other than becoming a broker for portals like that to get, a complete feed, right?
Well, see here, but you're right with one very important exception. And the one very important exception is Realtor.com. Right?
Yeah, no, true.
Because Realtor.com has a sweetheart deal through the whole NAR thing, right?
True.
So clearly, my point is that Homes.com, whatever syndication feed that they had in place, sucked ass, compared to IDX, is sucked ass compared to Realtor.com. Zillow syndication feed, I believe, was pretty good. That's what the word that I've heard. It's just that Zillow, when they became a brokerage, when they went and started doing ZO fully, I think Zillow's fear was that the MLS will cancel those syndication agreements, right? So they went down the IDX route. So all of this is in this alternate history where CoStar goes and buys Homes.com. Okay, you get this URL, you get this website with a little bit of traffic, but the data feeds suck ass. And it's very likely that those syndication agreements likely had a whole lot of prohibitions, a whole lot of restrictions, a whole lot of licensing things that CoStar might have looked at and said, we can't actually do what we want with the homes.com, right? So in theory, they could have bought homes.com and then used 10x to get the IDX feed.
That's what they've done, right? And
which is what they've done. But I think the issue is for homes.com today and for CoStar, I don't believe they can do what they want to using IDX. What I mean by that is, why did the BPP deal fall apart? Right.
I mean, we don't know for sure.
We don't know,
there
but
was...
based on published accounts, the reason why it fell apart is that the BPP refused to let CoStar have promoted listings. Right.
I mean, I've heard things, but I don't think anybody knows for sure except for those people what happened there.
Sure. So we're just going by published reports. What it said was that BPP did not want CoStar to be able to do promoted listings, like sponsored, right? Yeah. So the display order, right? And that's homes.com, that's CoStar's entire kind of business model. They're trying to copy realestate.co.au, right? They're trying to copy Australia. They're trying to copy the British company, something, Rightmove, right? They're saying, look, the seller and the listing agent should pay additional to push the results up higher. This is how LoopNet works, right? Something that they're really familiar with.
I believe that is part of their strategy. I have yet to see them, even in the kind of I think the videos that you and I have shared, that they have not announced those promoted listing products yet, right?
Yeah,
I hear rumors. I've heard rumors they can.
They cannot under the current data agreements.
Under current IDX agreements.
They can't do it under IDX, right? And they probably couldn't under syndication agreements that homes.com had, right? So they needed to renegotiate with the MLSs to allow for the promoted listings, right?
But if you're saying they can't do it via IDX, then they've got IDX feeds now, so...
Correct. They can't do it right now, right? So my guess is...
But I mean, I thought your premise is because they couldn't do it that way,
right?
They had to say no to it, and then... They went to a model where they can't do it anyway. I mean, that does. Maybe I'm not following you.
So I'm just saying alternative history, right? So in a way, I'm roundabout getting to your point, which is that CoStar burned $250 million buying HomeSnap, right? Which, in retrospect, I agree with you. I think that money was just set on fire. But at the time, and this was my big thing about it, why did CoStar go and spend $250 million on a mobile app, right? And what I said then was they didn't pay $250 million for the mobile app. They paid $250 million for the relationship with BPP. And I think they never imagined in their wildest dreams, and quite frankly, I did not imagine in my wildest dreams that the BPP would say no to CoStar.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? I think that's because BPP had the sweetheart data set, right? BPP, by all accounts, everyone that I know, I've spoken to a number of people who really are in position to know, were like, no, that data feed had very few restrictions, right? It was sort of like almost better than what the Realtor.com, license terms get, right? That was the word. That was my understanding. And what they needed was the BPP to simply agree to allow CoStar to do promoted listings. And they said no. And nobody thought that was going to happen.
Yeah, I did. But I mean, the data came from the MLSs that they were in.
Yeah.
So you're saying that there was a different type of data agreement because they were involved in the BPP that the MLSs who signed up with them signed?
Yes.
Yeah, that's news to me. So,
no, that is my understanding. That the BPP got a sweetheart data feed from the MLS, from the member MLSs, right? Which covered 90%.
But I mean, maybe I'm getting caught up in the weeds here of like a technical thing. You're saying the MLSs sent data to BPP,
yes,
and then BPP from there powered the HomeSnap stuff.
That's right.
Okay,
and that's the JV, right? Okay, that's the JV.
Okay, no,
and then right. So when CoStar came in and bought HomeSnap, they needed to do something with the JV. Like they couldn't buy the JV, right? And broker BPP is one half of that JV. And the thought was BPP would presumably, sure, we don't, you're a partner, right? You're going to help whatever. And HomeSnap or Homes.com would become the new BPP, which allows them to go beat the shit out of Zillow. I mean, that's the whole premise, right?
Okay.
Broker Public Portal was created to beat up Zillow. Here's CoStar saying, we want to beat up Zillow with you. So everyone thought like, yeah, there's no reason why this wouldn't happen until the MLSs said no. Right? Because by that time, I think the MLSs got freaked out about CoStar. I think they said, oh, CoStar's coming in here and they want to be the MLS. They're going to displace us. And I think that's why they did what they did. Right?
Yeah, so, but I mean, they have been, though, if you look at it overall, even with this BPP going away, they've been extremely successful getting MLSs to still provide data for the portal. And
have
therefore, yeah, absolutely.
How?
I guess, I mean, their team has been going to MLSs, talking to them, and a vast majority, I mean, number-wise, has gone and said, yes, you can operate this way. You're a broker, so that's one of the things they can't kind of say that anyway, right? So
I guess that's a really good question, right? So there's one of two things: either the local MLS gave CoStar a waiver from the IDX rules that does not allow for promoted listings.
Right, which we don't know, right? Because, I mean, again, they
Correct.
have not announced that product. I mean, they talked about it, but I don't think it's being sold right now.
Correct. Or they executed a syndication agreement with CoStar. Those are the only two possibilities, right? You either have to get a waiver from an IDX rules, or you have to sign syndication.
Right. But let's go back to like, I'm not sure I understand. I'm not sure I was under the impression or knew that you couldn't do promoted listings. And let me tell you why. I mean, I go to many broker websites and I can see a listing carousel.
Okay.
Right on the top.
Yep.
Right. And those listings are, the broker's listings typically, and they're right at the top. And then I can do a search.
Yep.
Right. And below that listing carousel are the listings there. So, I mean, I've seen that forever being done. Right. So I'm not sure if I totally know for sure that you can't do, as part of the IDX agreement, you can't do promoted listings. That doesn't sound right. Doesn't sound right to me.
I'm almost certain that you cannot using IDX. Right. Because the whole premise of IDX is these aren't your listings. This is somebody else's listings. Right?
No, but for sure. But I mean, you've seen those listing carousels before though, right?
I understand. And I've seen like, hey, my listings, and then do a search. But those are your own listings. Well, CoStar doesn't have any listings. They're not a brokerage.
They are a brokerage.
Well, 10X.
That's how they got that. They got the only reason they got the IDX feed is because they are a brokerage.
I get it. My point is that CoStar doesn't go out and take its own listings.
Right.
Right.
So what you're saying is it has to be your own listings that you're highlighting.
I think so. Right. But quite frankly, I don't think IDX allows someone to go and make money and monetize somebody else's listings, which is what promoted listings would be doing. Right.
Well, I mean, essentially by IDX itself, you're promoting other people's listings. I mean, it's the whole premise of the MLS. Yeah, but you help me sell my listings and I'll help you sell yours.
Hey, but you can't monetize it, is my point.
Well, I mean, what's Zillow's doing, monetizing the shit out of all this?
Only via, what's it called? Lead generation. They're not, right? They're doing the percentage.
It's still monetized. Well, no, they have their home flex program too. They're monetizing it.
Okay, look, go argue with NAR and the IDX committee. I don't know what to tell you. I'm just telling you, from my understanding, you cannot do promoted listings with IDX data, right?
Okay.
And that's the linchpin. That's what CoStar went to BPP was to say, hey, we're gonna do all this for you. And I've heard some big numbers thrown around, man. I mean, I've heard some big numbers thrown around. And in return, what they wanted was, can we please do promoted listings?
Yeah, I don't know if it's I mean, I'm following what you're saying, but is it more of like BPP, not because of IDX rules, just said, we'll partner with you, but we don't want you to do promoted listings, right? And that was part of the agreement. Or if IDX rules say, even if BPP got the permission to do promoted listings, they said to them, we don't want you to do them. Or if it's really at a base level IDX.
It's two separate things. So BPP had a syndication feed, right? It wasn't IDX. BPP was not IDX. That was like a direct feed from the member MLSs. And what CoStar went was, okay, can we now do promoted listings on this? And they said no. Okay, now CoStar's like, shit, how are we going to get our data? Okay, well, now we have to get IDX, which is what they're doing today. If you're in IDX world, you can't do promoted listings.
So it didn't solve a problem for them.
It didn't solve the problem, but it lets them keep, traction going. So the next step is where they are today. And this is my point. And we don't know because they haven't announced anything, right? CoStar is likely going MLS by MLS and saying, please give us either a syndication feed that allows us to promoted listings, or give us a waiver from IDX rules so we can do promoted listings using IDX data. There's no other alternative, right? Those are the only two ways that CoStar can do the promoted listings business model, which is the whole thing that what they want to do. Now, at some point,
one of the things they want to do. It's not their whole thing, but yeah.
I don't think it's their whole thing, but it's like the stated public, in terms of competing with Zillow, your listing, your lead, all of that stuff. It's all premised upon the LoopNet/rightmove/realestate.co.au model, right? I mean, that's at the heart of it. So yeah, in retrospect, with 2020 hindsight, if Andy Florence had known that the BPP was going to say no to him, then no, I don't think he pays $250 million for HomeSnap. There's no way, right? But I don't think anybody thought that. And I think what he was thinking was, okay, I paid $250 million for this. That gives me 90% of all listings through the Sweetheart feed that lets me do promoted listings. Right.
Right. And I guess what I'm saying is that, let's just say, and again, these are hypothetical things, that in whatever universe they bought homes.com first.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they buy HomeSnap afterwards?
I don't think so, because here's the thing. I don't think you buy homes.com until you have HomeSnap. You got to figure out this data piece, right?
So it was so central in their minds, and then when they realized it's just a cost of yeah.
Yeah. And then so now like them changing the HomeSnap brand to homes.com is, to your point, is a pretty clear signal. Yeah, we burned $250 million.
Right. Yeah, and I guess to me, it's like you're saying. I mean, I guess it's a very nuanced thing. I'm saying what if they bought homes.com first? Would they have bought HomeSnap? I'm not trying to say.
I don't think they buy HomeSnap if they bought homes.com first.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
Because to me, like, the whole reason behind buying HomeSnap was to get that sweet BPP deal. If they knew they weren't going to do that, I think there's a higher chance that they buy realtor.com first. Had they really believed, BPP is going to say no to us. Right.
Okay. So that's interesting. So let's go along your premise that the reason for this was like, they wanted a little bit more leeway with how they can do, and let's call it listing enhancement. Just forget promoted listing, for just listing enhancement, because that's part of a listing enhancement package, right? So really that brings into kind of focus, kind of what you're saying is that this rumor that they were going to buy Realtor.com can go back to the fact that they were still exploring ways to get to a way of having more of unfettered or ways of monetizing it via listing enhancement products, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So that thread that does thread through all that kind of thing, Sarah. I never pieced that together, in that thing coming from the angle that there are some components of listing enhancement that are restricted by the normal IDX agreements, or the MLS, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yep. Yeah. Well, maybe I'm learning something here new on this stuff. Interesting.
Now, here's what's going to be interesting. So let's fast forward a year or two, right? And the Department of Justice has utterly smashed NAR and the MLSs. Now what happens? Right? I think CoStar at that point is sitting in a pretty interesting position, right? Like, what happens if the FTC comes in and starts looking at IDX rules and starts fucking around with it and be like, you can't do this, you can't do this. Here's your new regulations, right? So IDX is no longer an MLS controlled thing. It is more of a federal government regulated standard.
Right.
Which, again, I'm not saying it's going to happen. What I'm saying is I think the FTC would like to see that happen because government's all about trying to control everything. I mean, you know, the fucking deep state, right? Like, what's so weird about this whole thing for me is like, I hate the government. Like in every, I'm an anarchist.
You always say this.
And yet I'm forced to, right?
I hate saying this, but it's a deep state situation.
Yeah, I know, but it's like, it's so obvious. So anyway, what happens if that, you know, if it goes that way, then, you know, then all of a sudden CoStar's like, hey, cool, right?
Okay, and I hate to tell you, I hate to bring this in because like it does feed into your narrative, but I was just talking to somebody about this. So let's look at the recent changes at realtor.com. Mm-hmm. Right. So it seems to me you could, and again, posit this in your narrative of like and this started with Florence. I think, you know, we talked about this on the Asteroid Hits is like, nothing's a coincidence, right? There are no coincidences, as we like to say, right? So these lawsuits come up, however they got started. We don't know. We don't know, you know, who actually was in the rooms and like who has whiteboarded this fucking all shit out. But
actually, I have a theory on that.
Okay, well, let me finish my point.
Yeah.
But it was recently announced that the CEO of Realtor.com is moving on.
Yes.
David Doctorow, right? So, and who did they bring in to take his place?
I didn't even see who.
It was a person that ran or was a bigwig at the Australian portal.
Gotcha. Yep.
Okay, so it seems like they're starting to move the chess pieces again in preparation for this whole new
Asteroid.
world.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I hate giving that to you, but you could interpret that way. Now that I don't know if that's the case or not.
Yeah.
But you could interpret that way. Now what we
here we are, conspiracy mongering fools over here.
I'm gonna make myself a tinfoil hat so I can just keep it around here.
You know, we should actually make hats that says conspiracy theorist or something.
Industry relations.
Conspiracy theorists.
Some swag items, right? Yeah.
But here's the thing, man. In 2023, conspiracy theorists are like, hey, we've been proven more right than wrong.
This is MSN, man. We're mainstream media here.
I mean, we have aliens. Like, did you what?
In Vegas, they're in Vegas now.
All those crazy tin hat wearing people were right. We have aliens. What? Area 51. Anyway. All right. So here's the conspiracy theory. In the Department of Justice appellate brief, there's a mention.
Oh Jesus! Here we go.
That they began this investigation in 2018 after a complaint by an industry participant.
Yeah.
And remember, this lawsuit, the Murrow lawsuit, got filed in 2019, right?
Right.
Now, if they didn't name this industry participant, I'm willing to bet a month's worth of income that the said industry participant's name rhymes with sex.
Oh, right on. Okay.
Right? I'm willing to bet money.
Well, politically connected, right? I mean, we all know.
Right?
Talk about John Ryan, right?
Jack Ryan, right?
Jack Ryan, sorry, yeah.
I think the flow goes something like, they go notify DOJ. They go, oh yeah, this is cool, let's investigate. And then the DOJ tips off the lawyers.
Well, it doesn't even have to be tips off. There's probably people that's job is to like find opportunities like that, right?
Sure, but what my point simply is like there's staff attorneys, there's all sorts of people who are at the DOJ, and those worlds cross over, right? And the lawyers like the Cohn Milstein and Higgins Berman, like these are big time law firms. They're not ambulance chasers. They're the types of people who hang out with Department of Justice people, and they went to the same law schools. They went to Harvard, Yale, Princeton,
deep state,
like whatever.
Deep state, just say it.
Yeah,
deep state.
They're part of that. And I think they were at dinner or something. One say, "Hey, man, we're looking at investigating real estate. Oh, tell me more. Oh, wow, there's a lot of money here, right?" And speaking of deep state, the Department of Justice saying they're like, "Hey, NAR is very powerful politically. We could use some outside third-party pressure from civil litigation. Hey, Cohen Milstein, why don't you guys take a look at this?" They said, "This is a gold mine." Bang.
It's not the
Conspiracy
deep
theory
state.
over. Right.
Yeah. It's not a deep state. What's the other term for that? The imbroglate, not the,
What?
just the elites. What
Yeah,
club are
yeah,
the
yeah.
elites about?
Yeah, the Illuminati. Yeah.
The Illuminati. That's right. This is the Illuminati. It's Illuminati taking over here.
So that's my hypothesis how this all began, and here we are.
I'm just waiting for black suits to run up in my door whenever. Oh my God, they've been dancing around this issue for so long and they finally figured it out. Get somebody over there.
Oh wow. Yeah. Just in case anyone is listening, I am not suicidal in the least bit. So and I have no evidence that will result in the imprisonment of Hillary Clinton. None whatsoever.
Oh God.
So that's kind of where we're at. So let's now look at it today, right? So what does CoStar and Homes and all this do now? Well, they just need to keep it going. Like do what they can, right? Get the agents more involved, right? And sort of win I think they just need to win the I don't know what to call it, hearts and minds war, I suppose, with agents and brokers over Zillow.
I think it's not even that. That's easy. I think they got the hearts and minds. When you say you're listing your lead, I think those listing agents get that. I love it.
Yeah.
I understand it.
Yeah.
It's consumers. It's like we always talk about.
Yeah, yeah.
Consumers they have to if they can win the hearts and minds of agents.
Yeah.
But if consumers don't show to the site, it means nothing, right? So
consumers will show to the site. Consumers are. I mean,
there's still a way distant third.
Sure.
To Zillow, right? So it's going to be how far up the ladder they can get that with the things that they're doing. So, and whether that playbook will work.
Here's the one thing you can't count them out. Like they've already done it. They've already shown that they can do it with apartments.com.
No, right? I mean, listen. I mean, more and more, I've been I'm skeptical before, but I mean, I've been impressed on the moves they've been making.
Yeah.
Again, not only to me, I mean, I'm more inside baseball. I'm just looking at like, the site changes they made. I guess the traffic has been growing. And again, I started off the podcast. I've just always been impressed with their team, like with Andy and Michael and those guys, of getting the MLSs, and I think they're a trustworthy group. But can this all translate? Who's going to be that celebrity? On the podcast I had with Andy, he kind of like hinted that they'd already booked the guy or girl, I don't know, and they're going to do some sort of launch maybe this summer or something. So we'll all find out who the next
we'll all find out.
Jeff Goldblum. So
yeah, he's only did apartments.com. I don't think they're going to use Jeff again. That's just my take.
No, it's got to be a different. It's got to be a different person.
Well, let's actually just spend a couple of minutes on who do you think it would be. Let's put it this way: if you were in charge of picking the person for Homes.com, who would you?
Okay, this has been So this is an easy one for me because this has been the fodder of some lobby bar conversations I've had for a while now. I don't think this guy would do it, but I mean, if you want this trustworthy, I'm thinking of the voice narrative also and everything else. Let's talk about what home means. Tom Hanks.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Right. You can't think there's very little of those celebrities around nowadays that are truly kind of love the guy's amidst Americana in a way. Right. So, he's done a lot of the, a lot of patriotical things. I think this has that type of a vibe to it. That would be my number one.
Tom Hanks.
If you could get him.
Okay. You could get him. I mean, you could get him. I was thinking you could pay a lot less and get most of it by going like Morgan Freeman.
Right. Okay. But I mean, if I think of the roles that Tom Hanks has been in.
But this is voiceover, right?
Well, no, it's not voiceover. The way they do the Brad whatever fellows, the Jeff Goldblum.
Okay. So he would have to be on screen.
Yeah, I mean, this is a television commercials. That's how they do with the apartments.com, right? So it's like you want that type of thing. I mean, no, narrative. It was just a voiceover. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he'd be
I'm choice, with you. Right? I think Tom Hanks, could do it. He would be ideal number one. But it depends. Like, do they want to do like the straight, serious, dramatic thing? or do they want to try and do
they've
funny?
always been very tongue in cheek with
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum on those things.
Yeah.
With the,
Because
big computer system.
If they want to do funny, they can't be Tom Hanks, right?
I mean, he's done some comedic roles, right? I mean, that's how they got started with that Bosom Buddies thing, which
yeah, he hasn't done one since he hit his 40s or something. I mean, it was, right?
No, Splash. Those are all long ways away. You're right about that, right?
Long time ago.
Who else? I mean, if you look back at like Realtor.com, it was like Elizabeth Banks. They'd had that Phil Dunphy thing. They had a thing with that guy.
Yeah.
Real estate. Well, in another universe, it could have been Donald Trump, right?
Yeah, true.
Before all this shit, right? I mean,
if they're going to do a little bit more humor oriented, I could see them going with George Clooney.
George Clooney, sure, okay. Right. No, that's another one of those kind of celebrities with a little bit of brand to him, for sure.
Yeah, and he's done some commercial work for like Nespresso and stuff. Right. Him and Danny DeVito, and it was okay. It's not like laugh out loud funny.
Right.
Jerry
Seinfeld?
I think he's a little too quirky, don't you?
I mean, he did those American Express ads like a long time ago, right? I mean,
yeah, I guess. Anyway, or like get Joe Rogan. I don't know.
It's got some back. Speaking of conspiracy theorists, right?
Just saying, like, I don't know. All right, so I think that's how it's going to play out. All right. Let's see if we could just tie a bow on this. I think I'm going to agree with you that yes, HomeSnap was a $250 million bonfire, but I don't think it was a mistake because there's no way that they knew or anybody knew that the BPP would go the way they did. Right. I think they were buying it for the access to the data, which seemed like a rock solid, like no-brainer. And if they had that, then they would have bought homes.com. They might have gone out and bought realtor.com, right? Like there's nothing that says you can't buy both.
The thing that makes me think what you're saying is got some validity to it. Not that you don't say things that are valid. Is that realtor.com thing that really, because we do know that they have special data things. So for them to reach out to them and that rumor happened, that matches what you're saying. So
that's right.
That's a nice thread there. Yeah,
that's right. And then what they might have discovered is if you read the fine print of that agreement, they couldn't do promoted listings.
Right. I've got to check on that, and I could be completely wrong there.
Right. I mean that license agreement used to be public, so I used to be able to look at it. It's not public anymore, so I don't know. But I mean the
IDX thing, but yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
So I think they're just going to keep going, keep pushing, keep improving homes.com, and they're going to wait for the asteroid to hit. And when it does, everything changes, and they're going to be ready. Whereas who else will be ready? I think Zillow will be ready. Yeah. And I think everybody else will be like, what the fuck? I think they're all,
Well, that's a little, I mean, that's interesting. Let me unpack that because you just said something I think that's kind of profound.
Whoa, profound.
Well, I mean, just we always used to talk about how CoStar is going to win because they're with the model. But you just said, and this is, I think, completely right, that, and we always said this, that they were going to adjust, but it sounds like everybody's going to be ready. So this is not something that everybody's going to have like take as a big shock or their pants are down or whatever else. I mean, so that's a very different climate of having the surprise attack of doing things right now. I guess to me, CoStar has a lot of experience in this business model. Mm-hmm. They're bringing now Realtor.com is bringing somebody into the fold that has a lot of experience in that business model.
That's right.
Zillow is learning. They're starting to go in that direction to learn about that business model. So
that's right.
I think that's only going to make it tougher for people to, well, we'll have to see whether that experience is going to trump. It reminds me of like the old quote we used to talk about where it's like, I think it was the head of marketing over at like Netflix, where Netflix said that they had to turn into HBO before HBO turned into them. Mm-hmm. It was a faster thing. So can Zillow turn into if this whole asteroid hits, with these lawsuits, can they turn into an Australian model quicker than the other way around, right?
Yeah, and I think the answer is yes, they can, because the business model is not new, right? And you're right. I mean, Zillow they don't have any track record on this, if you will. But dude, like, most of the companies in the world operate this way.
Right.
So it isn't that Zillow couldn't go hire somebody from Rightmove. It's not
they
like
did that with Zillow Offers. They bought some people some people in from Invitation Homes and things like that. So
they have plenty of money. They could, and the thing is, Zillow still has the traffic. They're still number one by a long, long way. And if the asteroid drops and all these things change, I think it's like 30 days. Let me put it this way. There's no way in hell Zillow doesn't have a fully developed plan, right?
Totally.
in the file cabinet that says, if this happens, pull out flattened, whatever, right? Operation Spitfire, and implement that. Like, there's no way they don't have that. Of course they have that, right? Yeah. And part of that's going to be, we're going to buy this company. We're going to hire these 3 people from Rightmove. We're going to hire this guy out of the French portal. We're going to hire, do you know what I mean? Like, that's a given, right? So no, there'll be competition. The issue is, when I was talking about, like, the big guys are ready, right? I don't know. Like, the industry as a whole, like, fuck that noise. Nah, nobody's ready. It's shocking. Right. You and I have talked about it repeatedly. Yeah. It is shocking how unready everybody else, it's shocking. It's just absolutely shocking, right? And even the guys who really do know, for example, is Realogy ready? Is Home Services ready? No. Is Keller Williams ready for this asteroid? I don't think so. Somebody's going to have to show me some evidence that they're ready, because I'm not seeing it. I'm just not, right? So, we'll see. Anyway, good chat as always. I guess I'll see you next week for this. And by that time, I think we should be talking. We got to revisit this Department of Justice thing, dude. The appellate brief. I'm going to write up something about it over the weekend. It's worth talking about.
No, I mean, I think you called it there, right? I mean, it got smacked down, right? I mean,
well, not yet. I mean, it's just a brief. We'll see but man, it was painful.
And I'll start making the tin hats for our swag items.
Yes. All right, brother. All right, and thanks everybody for listening. As always, we appreciate your support.
Thanks.
All right, later.